I don't want to be strong like man who look pretty. I want to be strong like bitch that fight bears in the forest.
Welcome to another episode of Bitch vs. Bear with your hosts, Amber.
Me.
And me, Sydney. Woohoo! Co-owners of Shield Maiden Trading Co. This is a show where we bitch, laugh, and chat about all things, everything, fitness and wellness, and just world-related to women and the LGBTQIA plus community.
We sure do. You got real loud there, and you were real close to your microphone, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm sorry.
During
I
editing.
don't feel like I have my normal voice because I've been sick and I had like strep throat, and so my tonsils are still really close together. So like my voice is an octave lower than it normally is. So I'm just like, it's just weird. It sounds weird to me. So I apologize.
You sound a normal volume level.
Well,
that
that's
helps.
good because I didn't feel like I could talk at a normal volume level for a very long time. So
That's fair. All right, so today's episode, it's all about something that is near and dear to, I guess, both of our hearts.
it is both of our hearts. It is.
It is. It is. Our topic today is reclaiming outdoor spaces for women and LGBTQ plus folks. Because the outdoors isn't just for like rugged, bearded bros in plaid shirts.
I noticed that. I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
For those not watching the video, I am in fact wearing a plaid shirt today.
Yeah.
So I feel
Buy
a little
an outdoor
targeted.
brand.
Buy an outdoor brand. Being a little targeted. I'm also sitting here with like my quilt because I'm so cold. But anyways, regardless, obviously, the outdoors is for everyone. And it's time we make that clear. We are going to explore the history, the current state of the outdoor and fitness industries, and why this matters for health and for wellness. And most importantly, give us some actionable tips to reclaim these spaces for us, for you, for our communities. Let's get into it, Sydney.
Okay. So let's start with a little history.
Great.
Outdoor spaces haven't always been inclusive. And honestly, they're still not
What?
entirely there, right? So you think like outdoor spaces, everybody can be outside. Well, that's not actually true. So back in the 19th and early 20th centuries, outdoor recreation was seen as a pastime for, you guessed it, wealthy white men.
What isn't?
Yeah. Women were often discouraged from activities like hiking or climbing because they were deemed too strenuous or inappropriate for us.
Right.
Yeah. And then let's not forget the layers of racism and colonialism.
What?
National parks in the U.S., for instance, were marketed as pristine wilderness after forcibly displacing indigenous people. So, like,
Yes.
no.
Yeah.
For queer folks, the outdoors often carry risk of violence and discrimination. Even today, there are barriers like fear of harassment or lack of representation in outdoor media. Outdoor recreation spaces, be it a hiking trail, a climbing gym, or even a local park, were not designed with inclusivity in mind. But
Shocker.
yeah, right, like shocker. But that's where we come in. Reclaiming these spaces is an act of resistance and healing, and we love resistance. Like, I think that we are just modern day Star Wars. We are the resistance.
Of course. Of course, it's about Star Wars.
Of course.
Did you read? I think I told you about this book. And it's right up your alley. And I almost got it for you as your Christmas book.
Ooh.
But then I found that other one. The, oh, shoot, what's her? Grandma Gates's
Yes. Yeah.
Long Walk or something.
I haven't read it yet.
Maybe
It's
it's
on
a
my
long one.
TBR.
Oh my God. It is so good. You need to read it.
Okay.
It's amazing.
It's on my TBR. And when I looked, like, there was like a wait for it on Libby, and then I like started reading other things. So it's definitely still there.
Yeah, you need to circle back. It's so
Okay.
good. And it's like right in line with this.
Cool.
I'll look up the title and author and actually put it in the notes.
Great.
To make sure I'm getting it right. But like it's about this older lady in the like whatever the frig it was, 20s, 30s, 40s, when like the Appalachian Trail was like brand spanking new,
Oh, wow.
and like only a handful of people, if that, had ever like walked the entire thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So she was like one of the first through hikers of the Appalachian Trail
Sweet.
in like Keds.
I love that. I don't love that for her feet.
Right?
Also, I mean, having hiked very large sections of the Appalachian Trail,
Yeah, you're gonna think it's wild.
that
Like
to me is insane.
it's bananas. Like this book was so
Because
good. And like this isn't obviously this episode is not about this book, but like it's so cool. It's just I mean,
yeah,
I think she's still like a white woman, but
a woman. At
A
least
woman.
we're moving in that direction.
she was a woman. She was a grandmother.
That's
Like
awesome.
her kids didn't know where she was.
And yeah, it's not like
She's
she
just
could
like-
gives updates. Like she's just.
She sent postcards.
That's great.
Yeah. They were like,
so cool.
yeah, she's out doing a thing. I think she did it a couple of times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
She's
impressive.
like, I just like to walk. She also like did a cross country thing. Like it was wild. You need to read this book. It was so good.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like she didn't do it as any kind of form of resistance or anything. She was just like, I like to walk and this looks cool.
So I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Because why the heck not?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was-
yeah,
it was
I will.
awesome.
I will read that.
It was so good. I enjoyed it. It was a good read. Okay. Anyways, let's fast forward to today. Here in January, where it's so cold. But we're starting to see some shifts. Women's participation in outdoor recreation is growing, thanks to movements like REI's hashtag Force of Nature campaign. There's also a rising wave of LGBTQ plus outdoor organizations like the Venture Out Project and Out There Adventures. It always seems so wild to me that there's not a lot of queer folks in the outdoors, because in
The space
in
that,
where I work,
yeah,
in this outdoor space that I work in,
the outdoor space that you work in is filled with
they're
women
all
and queer
women.
queer women, and yeah,
So like it seems wild to me that that's not a universal thing,
yeah, it's
because like my little sphere is
is
so queer.
yeah, so queer and so filled with women, and in that
And
realm,
women in outdoors and queer folk in the outdoors.
and like, I mean, that kind of like started in the 80s, early 90s.
I mean,
With
yes,
like
it
that
started
progression of like women really taking over that particular outdoor sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but
It
it is not a accurate representation of the industry at large.
It's not. And I always have to remind myself that like what I see and encounter in like the realms that I move in is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
indicative of the larger scope.
I mean, primarily like when I started in the industry, like almost all of my mentors and like instructor friends and all of that, like the majority of them were women and
Yeah.
not male, which is very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the mentors and people that I am talking to and interacting with in the schools across the country, along with our own school, are women.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Yeah. I will say that I think there was it does help that the part of the industry that we work in also crosses over with the sailing industry, which had started that shift, and so I think that overlap really helped, like,
Yeah.
that particular school become much more like female based in instructors because of the overlap, the fact that the sailing community also much earlier on had a wave of women sailors
Yeah.
coming into the industry and becoming, boat wrights and skippers and doing different things. So I think that was really fortunate, because even if you go out west, like there was for a long time the majority of like mountaineering and like those types, or like whitewater, was still primarily male focused.
That makes sense.
So I think that had a lot to do with it. but it's interesting.
It is interesting. And we now have a female
Executive
director for Outward Bound USA,
yes.
which is so cool.
Which, shout out to Ginger. She is
Ginger Naylor. She's amazing.
She's from Maryland.
Of course she is.
Yeah.
Of course she is.
Yeah, she was the ED for Baltimore Outward Bound for a long time.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. So, all of that tangenting. To come back to, representation doesn't always mean inclusion, though.
Yeah.
It's like, I see a lot of representation in where I'm currently looking. But like, that also doesn't mean inclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, women and LGBTQ plus folks still face microaggressions, lack of accessible gear, and financial barriers. It always comes back to finances, doesn't it?
Mm.
Let's talk about... That was a weird transition. Let me try that again.
Okay.
Sorry. So, let's talk about... Nope, still not a good transition. Sorry, I thought we were going somewhere else. I did read this. Okay.
How about this?
Okay. Okay.
Does that make it better?
I mean, I just, like, the thought train that I was on, I thought was veering, but it wasn't veering as far as I thought it was.
Mm.
It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Financial barriers. Great. Okay. Let's talk about climbing gyms, for example. They've become a trendy space for fitness and socializing, but they're still often male-dominated. And queer or trans folks can feel isolated in those spaces.
Yeah. And they don't always, because of, the type of climbing, like bouldering has become very popular, very fitness kind of based.
Don't know why. It's awful.
There is a really cool aspect to bouldering is it requires a lot less gear, and there's
Right.
a lower barrier to entry for anyone, especially marginalized groups, right? Because all you really need are shoes and either access. Most gyms across the country are like, oh, it's your first time here, like try it for free.
Yeah.
And offer like gas passes for their members. So like there's a lot of ways to get into it and have a really low barrier to entry. But that's for a very specific type of climbing, and climbing runs the gambit. And so like if you want to get into rope climbing, that financial barrier increases.
Yeah.
And so it's just really interesting. And then you have like the socializing aspect of like, now you're in a bouldering gym, for example, which tends to be filled with pretty strong, very young, masculine presenting folks who often, because it is also seen as a fitness space, take their shirts off.
Boulder bros.
And so like then you add that element in of like, okay, I'm new in this space, and now there's these intimidating climbers who may have been youth like there's a lot of reasons, but because of that transaction of just like fitness and climbing, it's appropriate for them to take their shirts off, they're sweating, they're doing these things, and it just creates another weird dynamic where you're like, do we need to have that? Like, I didn't think I was walking into a CrossFit gym.
Right. Bouldering's already intimidating enough.
Yeah, right.
Don't need to add.
Yeah. And, then there's the stereotypes
Yes.
where women are often underestimated and queer folks are sometimes put into that box of like weird fetishes.
Yes.
Or the more common one, which is erased altogether.
Yeah.
These like subtle yet very pervasive issues create gatekeeping effect. And, it's something that in my position, in my current role, is something that I take into account a lot, and of like, okay, what ways can we make sure we're not gatekeeping, and what ways can we lower the barrier to entry for folks? Because I know that we have a high barrier to entry. You have to have a lot of skill set. You have to have a knowledge base. There's nomenclature. And it was the same thing that persists in most outdoor industry spaces. And so I think that's why it's so important in creating community-specific outdoor groups
Yeah.
and spaces. Representation isn't enough. We need that systemic change. And
As
the way
always.
to do that is the people in power and decision-making power understand that there's a high barrier to entry. It usually has to do with finances.
Yes.
And the industry has been gatekept for a very long time.
And you know, it's finances, it's like you said, there's a whole language around the outdoor industry. There's a lot of skill sets that are required to
Yep.
do it safely.
Yeah.
And like you don't just wake up knowing that.
No, you don't.
Unfortunately.
You don't just wake
But,
up
like,
knowing that.
How do you learn it? It's very intimidating. Like,
And that comes down, like, I think you said, like, language, right? Like, those of us in the industry don't always understand or notice when we're using specific nomenclature, which is language, or terms, right? Nomenclature's terms for very specific outdoor industry type things, right? So, like, somebody, for example, coming into a climbing gym isn't going to know off the top of their head what belay means or on belay. Or to send something, right? So like those types of, that's such a foreign language. It's like somebody looks at you and you're now speaking Klingon.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in that space for 2 years now, and I still don't really know all the terms.
Yeah.
Like people will say things, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good talk.
And when and that's really hard when you're trying to coach people, right? Like even the names of like climbing holds, right? So like, oh, grab that jug. What the fuck does that mean?
There is no orange juice here. Like, what do you want me to do?
Milk? Like, I don't get it. And that's a very specific type of hold that is actually a really nice hand hold and usually has a good grip to it. And so if you're trying to coach a new person through climbing and you're like, hey, grab that jug to, your right, they're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? And be like, no, grab the orange one.
Or crimp.
Yeah, or
like, excuse me, I haven't done that to my hair since the 90s.
Yeah.
Back off.
You're fine. It's just a sloper. Like
that doesn't sound good.
What? Yeah. So it's that I think is a big piece of it that not everybody is aware of when starting to get into an outdoor space is if you're with friends or family and somebody who's trying to like be like, oh yeah, it's so great to go hiking or like, yeah, it's so great to, do these things. And then they throw out all of these terms that you're like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I know what that feels like.
It's
an easy hike.
You can blame
Don't
all
believe
trails
them.
for that.
Never believe your friends when they tell you it's an easy hike. It's not.
It's always relative. That's what I tell people. It is always relative.
All right. Let's get back on track. We did a short episode on the last one, so this one's going to be extra long.
Yeah, it is.
Talking about Sydney's favorite thing, the outdoors.
Yeah.
Okay, so why does this matter? Why does reclaiming outdoor spaces matter so much? Because it does.
Period.
End of episode.
Done.
No, because for one, spending time outdoors has massive mental and physical health benefits. We have probably already talked about this before, but we're going to talk about it again because it's so important. It reduces stress, it boosts your mood, and it can even help with conditions like anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
That's why.
But and it's not just about the individual benefits. It's also about creating cultural change. When women and LGBTQ plus folks take up space in the outdoors, we're saying we belong here too, and that can be really, really powerful. Yeah. So it goes back to that like resistance of like even just being in that space, like and taking up that space is incredibly beneficial and ties back into that mood boosting. Like you're kind of like fight the power.
Fight the patriarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Always resist the patriarchy in everything you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like I guess I can't speak for the queer community, but as a woman, it always feels like we're being asked to take up less space.
Yeah.
To be smaller, to be less, to be minimized. And so, yeah, I think anytime we can take up space and make ourselves seen and heard and bigger. I'm working on that currently. It's so beneficial.
Yeah.
Not just for our own selves, but like our entire communities.
It really is.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Plus, as always, the things that we love. Outdoor activities can build community and foster resilience.
Yeah.
Which is so great.
And for many queer folks, I think being in a community of like-minded people, but also getting all of those mood boosting things when you're outside is like so cool. Like doing yoga outside with like a bunch of gays is so fun. And yeah, I think, there's the stereotypes of like queer folks in the outdoors of like, especially like, oh, the gay guys don't want to be outside. Like it's dirty. Like that's just like not a fair stereotype. And it's like, no, anybody, we all.
I also don't want to be outside because it's dirty.
Fair. See, people don't like the dirt.
Not just gay guys.
Yeah, not just gay guys. I just think it's like it's fun to be in that community space and like have like-minded people and then do just like take up space and break those stereotypes and be like,
yeah, I love it because that's how the patriarchy gets you. It's those stereotypes.
That is true.
They're like, yes, you are gay. You can't go outside because you don't like it.
Or
I'm like, well, wait a minute.
The flip side of me being a butch lesbian and being like, oh, well, of course you go outside.
I mean,
yes, but like, actually, I was more outdoorsy before I came out. Like, I've always been outdoors. The lesbian thing came after.
Just because it's the right box that they put you in doesn't mean.
That was solely coincidental. Yeah.
Yeah, you're really feeding those stereotypes. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Some of my best mentor in the outdoor industry are very feminine women who, like, one of my favorite co-instructors of all time, who might even listen to this podcast. Her bug shirt was a J. Crew white collared button down that she would pop the collar and just like, because it was thick, it was like an Oxford shirt. Like the rest of us have our like fancy ones. She's like, I don't need that. Like she always looked so good. And she's like, why can't, like she would paint her nails. She would bring nail painting and like, it was great. It was so fun. That. Yeah. She was awesome.
And I think that's one of the things that's so hard is because there is that misconception that you need all this really technical gear to just get up. Like for some things, yes, you do need the technical gear.
Yeah, because it's to be fair, safety.
But for other things, like you don't.
You don't.
Like you just don't.
Yeah.
And
the whole, retail industry around it, that's a whole nother episode we'll get into.
Yes.
Performative outdoor wear is one of my pufferfish moments.
Some of it is really cute.
But ask me how angry I get when I see some dude walking across a Whole Foods parking lot with Starbucks in his hands wearing all Arc'teryx. Like he just came off the fucking mountain and it's flat. And I'm like, what are you doing, sir? You do not need any of that gear on. Like what? No.
Fair.
Take your mountaineering gear, like
to the mountain.
Go to fucking Colorado. Like, screw you. You're in Northern Virginia. Like.
So we have some very strong feelings. Yeah. We'll talk about that in another episode.
We will.
What not to wear in the outdoors.
What to invest in and not invest in when you're reclaiming outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
Part 2 of this episode.
That's our follow-up.
Yeah.
Is how to.
There we go.
Get into the outdoors. We will educate.
It's just me videoing Amber walking through the woods.
What the fuck is that? Something touched me.
It'll be great.
Well, Sid just yells nomenclature at me. It wouldn't be fun. Nobody would enjoy that. Okay. All right. Let's actually get into the how.
Okay.
How do we reclaim outdoor spaces, Sydney? Solve this problem for us.
Okay. I'm not solving any problems. I am just going to give you some tips or what I think best practice. So I think finding or creating inclusive groups. So whether that's a meetup or a Facebook group or a climbing gym that hosts women's night or LGBTQ like pride nights, community makes a huge difference. And you don't have to be afraid to start small.
Yeah.
Like even local parks can be a stepping stone to bigger outdoor adventures. So
Just get outdoors.
Yeah, there's a lot of state parks that people are just not aware of how many and how close they are to a lot of folks. And, you can just pair up with a buddy, like just be like, hey, let's go check out this state park. And then, just take a little trip around, like see what's there. They're usually pretty inexpensive. If you're an REI member, you can go to an REI and purchase something, and then most of the time when they print their receipt, there's a local state park that'll give you free entry to. So like the nearest state park.
So when you go buy all your technical mountain gear that Sydney's going to yell at you for,
no, you're
you can
gonna
then
go. You're gonna go to REI and you're gonna be purchase the like their line is like Pride Outside.
Oh, that's right.
So you can purchase like a cool Pride Outside sweatshirt or water bottle or something to identify, and then go get free entry to a state park.
REI endorse us.
Yeah.
That'd
be awesome. Talk about performative.
Right. That's so exciting. Yeah. The state parks are so great. I don't think I realized like how many and how accessible they were until we moved down here, because there's like a ton in Virginia.
Yeah.
There's like a lot. And they're great. And like a lot of them, they have like these really lovely, very gentle, not like Sydney's easy hike, but like my actual easy walk trails that you can just like get out on and like just follow a little trail as long as you want to, and then turn around and come back, or follow a small loop. A
lot of times they have like, cabins that you can rent for like staying. So like if you've never really like camped, it's an easy introduction into camping.
Love that.
Yeah.
And definitely go follow National State Parks Instagram account, because they are like amazing. They're so funny.
Yeah.
State parks are great.
State parks are great.
Okay, so another tip, like advocate for inclusivity in the spaces you already frequent. So if you're already part of a gym or outdoor club, suggest events or policies that cater to underrepresented groups. Allies. This is especially our lane. Get on it. Also, invest in education. We love education. Learn about the history of the land you're on, support Indigenous-led outdoor initiatives, and understand how systems of oppression show up in these spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do your research.
And this tip is my favorite because it's so funny, because of everything I've just talked about.
Oh, yes.
It is important to gear up. Outdoor activities can feel inaccessible due to cost a lot of time, but many organizations offer gear rentals. Many like climbing gyms offer gear rentals at a very low cost, and or even like free gear libraries. And there's usually a lot of places, outdoor stores like REI, like your local like Gear Hut and those places that will do consignment. And so you're not buying something brand new.
Yeah.
You're buying something that's gently used, and they have their experts review that item and make sure that it is still safe for you to use, and then sell it at a much lower cost.
Right.
So those places can be really beneficial, where you don't need to buy new. If it's gently used and it's been looked over, and you feel like you can trust that organization to to make it so, and then you can just be like, oh, I've gotten hiking poles, I've gotten shoes, I've gotten, almost none of my gear other than like maybe tents and sleeping bags have been purchased actually at retail.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I have been at an advantage where I've worked in the outdoor industry, so almost none of my gear is purchased at retail. It's all been pro dealed.
Yeah. That is another advantage.
So if you are looking to get into more spaces, my secondary tip to this is I've always found if you're really interested in learning about something, go work there because they're going to teach you for free. Right?
That's
so
fair.
like if you're interested in climbing, go get a part-time job at a climbing gym and they're going to pay you to learn the things you want to learn anyway. And then you probably get a free membership.
Yeah.
So if that, or like if you are really like, oh, I want to learn more about gear, like go find an REI and apply to be a part-time associate because they're going to teach you about it all.
I mean, fair enough.
That is my insider trick.
In all of everyone's free time.
You know, part-time jobs, you got to work like 20 hours a week, maybe.
Yeah.
Where you can be like, hey, I'm looking for a part-time job. I'll pick up anybody's drop shifts.
Yeah.
You know.
And
then they pay you to learn the things you want to know.
there you go.
Okay. I'll get off my outdoor soapbox.
Okay.
Reclaiming outdoor spaces is about more than fitness or recreation. It's about making a statement that everyone deserves access to the mental, physical, and social benefits that the outdoors provide.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So get out there. Go find your people and take up space. All the space you want because the outdoors is pretty big. And so you get to take up a lot of space. And remember, the outdoors belong to all of us. And if you have questions about how to get outside, gear, any outdoor industry things, any of that, send us a message.
Yeah.
Because if I
Sydney
can't
would love
answer
to
it,
tell you.
yeah, well, if I can't answer it, Amber sure as hell can too. Because despite what she is saying, she has been in the outdoor industry a long time now, and has done her own expeditions and things like that. So she knows what she's talking about. She has plenty of her own fucking gear. She can tell you what works and what doesn't work. And you will get a very harsh perspective. Because if it doesn't work, Amber will let you know.
That's true.
Because she does not want unworthy gear.
No. And it's got to be cute.
It's got to be cute. Like, it's both form and function in Amber's book. Like, yeah. I don't care what the tent looks like. Amber's like, no, but is it pretty?
But is it cute?
Like, so... Don't let her fool you.
What did you tell me the other day? My stuff was very cutesy, very demure.
Yes, very cutesy, very demure. It's true.
Which describes me to a T.
Yeah, totally.
Obviously. I will take no contradictions to that from the people that actually know us.
Fair.
All right. Let's wrap this up because we have others to record to today, I think. We're going to lose it fast. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, leave a review, comment, tell us your favorite outdoor space or gear or place to get gear or groups or all the things. Do that on any of the platforms.
Yes, please. We like that.
We love to hear from folks. Okay. That's a wrap. So remember, whether you are lifting weights or lifting each other up or exploring new outdoor spaces, let's keep breaking barriers, building strength, and embracing our rainbow of resilience. Until next time, bitches and bears, stay fierce and stay fabulous.